There have been a bunch of videos spawning on social media of women being asked whether they would feel more comfortable stuck in the woods with a man or a bear, in which most cases the women said they would choose the bear.
Would you rather be stuck in a forest with a man or a bear?
Bear. Man is scary.
With a bear.
What I've heard about bears, they don't always attack you, right? Unless you so maybe a bear.
Depends what man, but probably a bear.
Oh, 100% a bear, which is terrifying to say, but
definitely a bear. Some men are very scary out there.
a bear.
This phenomenon has sparked an entire social war online over the reasons behind such a response. But, regardless of whether you find it ludicrous or reasonable, there is a much more devious side to this conversation I haven't seen anyone else talk about, let alone bring up at all. Hopefully, what you're about to hear will not give the impression that I want to denigrate either the men or women, but rather that both sexes should mature and develop beyond what they believe. This discussion is divided into 3 parts. First, we're going to address some statistics and basic mathematics. Second, we will address the actual problem of this conversation. And finally, we're going to figure out some real-world practical solutions that will benefit society. Let's act like good human beings and give these women the benefit of the doubt. Assume most of these women are not crazy, stupid, or delusional, and see for ourselves the possible reasons for a supposedly sensible woman choosing to encounter a random bear over a random man. Well, one person thought he did something cool by bringing up 2 statistics.
How many bear attacks are there in the United States every year?
According to Bear Vault, since 1784 there have 66 fatal human-bear conflicts by wild black bears. Less than a dozen non-fatal conflicts happen each year, and the vast majority of encounters end with 0 bodily contact.
How many women are assaulted in the United States every year?
According to RAIN, on average, there are 463,634 victims, age 12 or older, of rape and sexual assault each year in the United States.
These statistics are not appropriate to compare to each other. This is not an honest way of calculating risk, as it doesn't factor in encounters. The number of encounters is important to consider because it reveals the true level of risk, as you will see in these hypothetical examples. Let's say there is a population of 1 million people. 100 of them encounter a shark. 10 of those encounters result in injury or worse. If you divide the number of shark-related injuries by the population, then the chance of being injured by a shark would be 0.001%. Now that's really small, you might think. But if you divide the number of injuries by the number of encounters with a shark, then the actual chance of injury when encountering a shark is 10%. By just existing, you have a 0.001% of being injured by a shark. But if you encounter a shark, then there is a 10% chance you will be injured. Those are 2 very different chances. Here's another hypothetical. Population of 1 million, of which 750,000 of them encounter a bee, 750 of whom were badly injured from being stung. 750 bee-related injuries divided by the population gives us a chance of 0.08%, 80 times higher than that of the shark. But if we divided bee-related injuries by the number of encounters with bees, 750,000, then the actual risk of injury when encountering a bee is 0.1%. Not much of a difference now, is it? Even though more people were injured by the bees than by the sharks, you are still 100 times more likely to be injured by a shark than by a bee when you factor in encounters. Why is the difference between the chance of injury in a population versus the chance in an encounter so vast? Is because factoring encounters is where we find the real risk of danger. This is the proper way to compare 2 different statistics when you want to correlate effects.
Okay, men, if you still claim that you don't get this argument, you are the problem. And I don't even think that you're human.
No, sir. If you still don't get it, then you just don't understand how statistical correlation works. Maybe this example will help. Population of 1 million people. 100 people entered the vacuum of space without a spacesuit, and all of those 100 people died. That chance of dying when calculating by population is 0.01%. Now, the real chance of dying in space without a spacesuit is, let's see here, 100 deaths divided by 100 encounters of naked moonwalking equals a 100% death rate. More people were injured by bees than people killed by space, and yet the vacuum of space is still more dangerous than bees. Why? Because the chance of death is higher when encountering the vacuum of space than encountering a bee. The next time you hear a statistic that tells you what your chances are of being harmed by something is, find out if that chance is compared to the population or the number of encounters. Now, let's get back to the man versus bear fiasco. Right now, there are about 330 million people in the US. Of those, 160 million are women. Let's take a third of them, 54 million, and find the number of times they have a close encounter with men in a year. We can consider a close encounter when the woman or the man could reach out and touch the other, give or take a few steps. Whether it's at work, in public transportation, housemates, at a grocery store, or the mall. I think it's safe to say that there's at least on average 20 close interactions, if not more, a woman has with men per workday. But let's bring that down to a 10. That gives us about 140 billion encounters between men and women in a single year. Next, we divide the number of sexual assaults and abuse every year, which range from 400,000 to 4.8 million. But let's be generous and round it up to 5 million in a single year, and divide that by the number of encounters between men and women. So, 5 million assaults divided by 140 billion encounters gives us a chance of risk of about 0.0036%. Mind you, that is just 1/3 of the women. If we included the other 106 million women, we would get a much lower number, 0.012%. And if we increased our average encounter amount from 10 to 20, that would also make the number much smaller, 0.006%. But to be nice, we can let our number stay super inflated. On to the bears. There are 340,000 wild bears in the United States. How many encounters are there between humans and bears in the US? Well, if you performed a quick and easy search on Google, you will come to find absolutely nothing. At best, you would find a tidal wave of links to national parks and conservation efforts and nonprofits, which will all give you big warnings that say, do not touch the bears, do not approach the bears, do not talk to the bears, do not take pictures with the bears, do not. You get the gist. But if it wasn't clear enough,
don't feed the bear!
Why? Because they are dangerous. When it comes to encounters with bears, finding decent statistics for this is impossible because many conditions and circumstances have to be taken into consideration to provide fair numbers. Besides the obvious fact that there's no way of accurately measuring human-bear encounters. Also, definitions of encountering a bear vary. Are we talking about looking through a pair of binoculars and seeing a bear way in the distance, this being the most common type of encounter? In which case some data suggest 30,000 generous encounters annually. Other sources suggest 300,000 distanced encounters. It depends on how you account, measure, and compile encounter statistics. Or are we talking about a bear hug closeness, a sort of Leonardo DiCaprio Revenant closeness? A good estimate of the number of close encounters would be no more than 3,000. However, I'm still feeling generous, so let's estimate close encounters to be about 3 million. Yes, we are going to foolishly assume that there are 3 million face to face encounters between humans and bears in the United States. Now, it's reported that there are about 340 negative encounters with bears annually. So, divide the 340 bad encounters by our generous 3 million close encounters, and you get a super reduced risk rate of 0.011%. That is also a small number, but remember, we made that number microscopically smaller than it realistically is, which would be about 11.3%. But let's be nice once again and keep our number in the shrunken state of 0.01%. So, how does it compare to the risk of the previous statistic? Here we go. For a random meeting with a man, a woman has a chance of 0.0036% of being assaulted. For a random meeting with a bear, a person has a chance of 0.011% of getting Leonardo DiCaprio'd all over the ground. That means approximately you are at least 3 times, if not 30 times, if not 900 times, if not 3,000 times, if not 9,000 times more likely to suffer at the paws of a random bear in the woods than you would at the hands of a random man. Wait, but wait, hold on. That's not the data comparison we're looking for. How so? Well, you compared the likelihood of women being assaulted by random men to likelihood of a bear putting humans in danger. You should have been comparing the likelihood of a dangerous man putting a woman in danger. I mean, the result won't change much, but if it makes you feel better, here are the numbers behind that equation. There are 170 million men in the US. Assuming all 5 million annual assaults on women were caused by men, and assuming none of them were repeat assaults by many of the same men, we can easily arrive to the mathematically false conclusion that 3% of men assault women. Next, we have to account the number of close encounters these women haters have with women. Because, after all, it would be absolutely stupid to assume that every encounter a woman has with a woman hater ends up with the woman being harmed. So, let's put our woman haters through the encounter calculation. 5 million women haters multiplied by 10 close encounters with women per workday, and we get 13 billion annual encounters between women and women haters, resulting in 0.038% of those encounters ending in the woman being assaulted. Now, let's calculate the bears in. Let's assume, as extremely unrealistic as it will sound, that all 340,000 bears encountered a human closely once annually, in which 340 of those close encounters ended badly, which gives us a rate of 0.1%. So let's compare the numbers. For a random meeting, not with the average man, but with a terrible and dangerous woman hating man, a woman has a chance of 0.038% of being assaulted. For a random meeting with a bear, a person has a chance of 0.1% of harm. That's 2.6 times more than the woman hater. This means that a woman is probability-wise more likely to be harmed by a bear than by a woman beater. Whoa! Let's just take a moment to absorb all this newfound information. Wow! I mean, this is really shocking news we're hearing right now. This is amazing. Just wow. Yeah, no. If you actually thought that playing Tea Party with a wild bear is safer than bumping shoulders with a random man, then I'm genuinely concerned for your mental health. You might even just have undiagnosed paranoia. So, for any of you people wanting the mathematics for this conversation, there you go. However, I'm not trying to make a point that the women who would rather want to be stuck with an option that is over 9,000 times more likely to injure them look stupid, though they should get a better grip on reality. Nor am I saying that men are angels. who wouldn't hurt a fly and should be treated as innocent babies incapable of doing wrong. No, bears harm humans more so out of self-determined necessity. Humans, on the other hand, can inflict pain and suffering just for the fun of it. That may be the message that the women are trying to get through to men. Now, I want to shift our perspective on the deeper issue of this ridiculous discussion, because this whole man versus bear conversation is just a surface level symptom of a condition that is dastardly evil. We need to stop being so butthurt because a few women chose the bear over the men and start asking ourselves why a woman would feel safer with a bear than with a man. We must address the real problems in society. We are going to face the reality of certain behaviors and stereotypes that men and women practice and believe in that are hurting themselves and each other. Look out for Man vs. Bear Part 2 to discover the real problem in our culture.